So, in our last lesson, we started talking about if something is a crime. So, before we even go to the Criminal Code of Canada, before we look at how somebody might be arrested or put on trial, we have to make sure that a crime has actually been committed. And hopefully, at this point, we do understand that there are two elements that both have to be true for a crime to have been committed. Okay. So yesterday or in the last lesson, we talked about actius reus. Okay. Again, for our memories, actius reus, it has the word act in it. So this is the doing, the committing, the physical side of the crime. Okay. We talked about the three different types of actius reus being the action of actually doing it, the state of being found in possession of something, or omission by not doing something. Okay, so in any given situation, you will have first done that actius reus analysis that we did yesterday. Okay, if you found that there was no actius reus, then there is no crime and you stop. But if you have found that there is actius reus, we then have to move on to the mens rea or the guilty mind component of the crime. Okay, so we still don't for sure have a crime. And again, in some of those scenarios we looked at yesterday, yes, the actius reus was there, even though when you were reading it, you felt like this wasn't something that somebody would be guilty of. Okay, and that might tie into the mens rea. Okay, so for the mens rea, it's often referred to as the guilty mind. Again, I remember mens rea is like mental, it's your mind, and it's necessary for there to be a crime. So, really, really quickly, I want to clarify for you the word motive. So, in any sort of TV shows or dramas or Netflix or movies where you see crime, they're almost always based in the United States. And in the United States, they have to prove motive as well as actius reus. Okay, which would be the reason why somebody commits a crime. But as we've talked about in this course a number of times, the reason why somebody does something, that's something that goes on in somebody's mind. That's a mental thing. And we know that we can't know what that is. Okay, so in Canada, we do not need a motive. We do not need there to be a reason why somebody committed a crime. Okay, what we need is mens rea, which is often referred to as intent, okay, which is the state of the mind when doing it. In some cases, this might correlate with motive, but in other cases, it doesn't. So, just to be really clear, I should never hear the word motive being used when we are talking about criminal law in Canada. We are talking about the need for mens reus after actius reus has been established. So, what are the four types of mens rea? Okay. They are knowledge, criminal negligence, recklessness, or willful blindness. And again, we only need one of them. Okay. And so we are going to go through them in the order that I think you should logically think about in order of kind of the most common or the most likely as you work your way through them. So the first one being knowledge. You are aware of the facts and that this activity that you are participating in is criminal or illegal. Okay. And again, you might be saying, but wait, how can we understand what somebody is aware of? Okay. This is based off of your mental capacity to understand this, and B, if an average everyday person knows that this is illegal. Okay, so you can't just say, oh, I didn't know stealing was illegal, and then knowledge doesn't exist. Okay, if the majority of society, okay, in criminal law, we often defer to like the average person, okay, knows that this is illegal, understands that this is illegal, then knowledge exists. Okay, so even though we go on and on about how there has to be the mens reus and the guilty mind, in the majority of cases, it's just doing something illegal that seems to be intentional, that you know that you're doing it. Knowledge is going to be there. Okay, and that's what I was talking about. Most people would know that it's illegal. Okay. Again, if you're holding on to an item and you're walking out of a store or you're like tucking it under and hiding it intentionally, okay, you would know that what you are doing is illegal. Okay. With any of our physical harm laws like assault and sexual assault and homicide or murder, okay, knowledge is almost automatically assumed. We know that if we strike someone, if we punch someone, that this is illegal and this is against the law. Okay. So in the majority of cases, knowledge is going to exist. If you can't establish knowledge, okay, that either they didn't know it was illegal, they didn't have the mental capacity to know that it was illegal, or it just kind of doesn't make sense in the case, then the next one we could look to is criminal negligence. Okay. Um, Criminal negligence is the wanton or reckless disregard for the lives or safeties of others. Okay. So this is doing something that is a deliberate action that you know is unsafe and could cause harm to others. Okay. Criminal negligence, okay, is often linked to omission. So if you got omission as your actius reus, right, not feeding your child, leaving your dog in a hot car, not doing something that's there, we're almost always going to link this to criminal negligence. Okay. Again, we're looking at situations where what you are doing is risking someone's life. Leaving a dog in a hot car, okay, you're risking somebody's life with that one. Okay. Another one that we often see criminal negligence coming up is with firearms. So leaving a firearm or something that's dangerous like a firearm out where someone might be able to access it. Okay. And so we would see, we have seen in Canada assault and even homicide charges laid on the owner of a firearm when a child picked it up and used it and caused harm to somebody else. Okay. Again, our actius reus was the action of leaving the firearm out or omission of not putting it away safely. Okay. And then our mens reus was criminal negligence, doing something that is inherently dangerous. Okay. We've also seen criminal negligence used when people leave their keys in a car around somebody that maybe doesn't know how to drive, but is likely to take it out and cause damage. Okay. And so criminal negligence might be there. Okay. Also, we sometimes see criminal negligence come up with substance abuse or not substance abuse, substance use. So, alcohol or drugs in your system, and then choosing to drive. Again, they maybe don't have the mental capacity for that to be knowledge of what they're doing is illegal, but criminal negligence is putting yourself in a situation, consuming that without a plan of how you're going to get home safely or without removing your car keys from the area. Okay. Again, a lot of times, like I said, with omission. So leaving medication out where children can access it, leaving that dog in the hot car. Okay. The next one we look at is recklessness. Okay. This one is consciously choosing to take a high risk that a normal person or a reasonable person would not take. Okay. So if you make the conscious choice not to wear your prescription eyeglasses when you need glasses to be able to see, and then you go and drive, that is recklessness. You are being overtly reckless. Okay. We've seen situations where people will say, oh, I didn't realize that that was illegal. And not everybody knows that that's illegal, because if you don't wear glasses, that might not be something that you're aware of. And so there's sometimes that struggle under knowledge, but it falls under recklessness. You can't see without your glasses. So it makes sense that you wouldn't go and drive without your glasses. That would be truly reckless. Okay. Street racing falls under recklessness. Again, it's not just that that it's illegal, it's also adding extra risk out there. Okay. And then finally, last but not least, if knowledge didn't work, if criminal negligence didn't work, if recklessness didn't work, then we look to willful blindness. Okay, you see the word blindness there, and that's talking about, and willful being your choice. So that's choosing to not acknowledge signs that might make you aware that something isn't working. So the deliberate closing of one's mind to the possible consequences of your actions. Okay. So, for example, if you were walking down the street and somebody comes up to you and like opens the trunk of their car and is like, oh, look, I have all these, Louis Vuitton purses and they're $10 each. Do you want one? Okay. Somebody would say, oh, I didn't realize that they were stolen, or, oh, I didn't realize that they were knockoffs and that buying them was illegal. Okay. But in this case, Okay, we look to willful blindness. Okay, there's enough indicating factors that a reasonable person is going to realize that something is off here and that you should have known in this situation. Okay, so we can't prove knowledge that you did know, but we can prove willful blindness that you chose not to read the signs. Okay, that most likely in this situation, it seems a little bit sketchy. Okay. Again, this whole I didn't know it was illegal in odd circumstances. Okay. And again, this one often comes up to, and you're going to look at some of the cases as well. Okay. Sometimes when people hold things for other people, okay, and they're like, oh, I didn't know, but like, could you have known, right? Is this person generally carrying illegal drugs? Okay. Is that something that you know about them and that, that possibility might have crossed your mind in those situations? All right. So that is our elements of a crime. All right. You need your actus reus, you need your mens reus. And if you can determine both of them, then we have a crime. If either of them is missing, then we do not have a crime. So again, the majority of the situations that catch people is when they found actus reus. Okay. We've seen somebody do it. We have evidence that they do it. But if we can't prove the mens reus in a trial or in a court, then we can arrest somebody and they are not going to be found guilty of a crime in Canada.